Yo, hey everybody. So I've got a wheel here that I've just laced up, and this is the process I like to use to got new components, and I'm looking to bring that wheel up to tension and true it and get it ready to ride. So first step is I'll just pre-seat the spokes onto the hub shell there, or on the flange, and I'm just kind of bending giving it that final little bend to the spoke so it matches the a little more of the contour of the hub shell there. At this point, I'm going to put the wheel up into in my case, a truing stand. You can use frame or whatever fixture you have available. You know, having something easy where you can kind of spin the wheel makes it easier, but I've got a little video I'm working on kind of showing some differences between an actual truing stand and a bike frame. But anyway, from here we're going to basically pre-tension the wheels. I like using these little bits. It's a little homemade bit there that I made, and it's basically a flathead screwdriver with a little tip in the middle. You can buy these commercially, or you can get the little pigtail tools, which I'll put links to these in the description. But those are nice. They're going to just set you up for success as far as quickly and evenly getting all the spoke nipples tightened to a consistent depth on the spoke itself. So it gets to the wheel to a point where you've just got a little bit of tension, and then you can really start doing your final tension and truing from there. At this point, we've got a wheel that's just got a little bit of tension, and we can kind of start roughing it into place. It's already pretty close, but one little tip I like to use is to put a white background on this case, my truing stand. Anything where your little calipers, where you can see how you're using to measure the rim run out, helps, to have that white background. But as you can see, the dish is a little out. I need to go to the drive side here just a little. So I'm going to be adding tension just pretty evenly all the way around the wheel. But what I'm doing is, on the drive side, I'm going to turn the spoke nipple maybe one full turn and then a half turn on the non-drive side, and so that's going to bring everything up to tension. It's not going to really get much radial up and down, but it's going to bring laterally that wheel into a little more into a correct dish. So I don't usually use a dishing tool per se. I got my calipers, my truing stand set up pretty accurately, so I'll basically just roughly go by that. Flip the wheel over once it's finalized, and that honestly to me works just as well as a dishing tool. But as you can see, we've got it getting closer into the ballpark. We're building tension on the wheel, almost to the point where we can start to measure it. But the wheel's dished pretty close, and its radial runout's pretty good. So next step is I'll seat the spokes in a little more fully here. So I'm just grabbing the groups of 4 spokes, and I've got a towel wrapped around it there, so I can really, if you do this just barehanded, it'll bruise your fingers. You're gonna squeeze that pretty hard enough to really seat the spoke in a little deeper than the first step of just kind of roughly pulling them over. And so go around the wheel, maybe do it a couple times there, and we're ready to start truing it a little more so now, or just really at this point I'm just kind of pre-truing it, adding a little tension on some of the low spots, or I tend to do the lateral and the radial both simultaneously at this point. Try to keep it centered and dish, but work on the radial. So got the jaws in a little closer. We're not anywhere near close. We still need to bring the tension up quite a bit, but we're roughing it into a little closer zone there. So we're going to have to make less corrections on the actual truing. Just bring it up to tension. So this is it's a 2.0 1.8 double butted spoke. So just going off the little park wheel chart here, I'd say around 125 to 130 kilograms of force is what we're shooting for. So just kind of that 22 23 mark on the park, the little tension gauge here. So as you can see right here, we're still pretty low. We'll check a couple spokes, make the rounds, and the tension was a little off, even though the wheel's straight. Tension's off a little bit, and that's going to change. Just, you know, the tighter we get it, we may focus on some of the looser spokes, but as we seat the spokes a little more each time, that's going to vary a little too, but it changes less and less the more stressing and whatnot you do. So wheel's pretty straight. You know, if it's going pretty straight, you know, I may just bring it up to tension quickly by tightening this, you know, going around and tighten each spoke evenly. You know, you will tighten the drive side probably a little more than the non-drive side, just because the way the wheel is dished, it'll pull it over to that left side more so if you tighten the left side or the non-drive side. So basically we're just going through the wheel, adding tension, and you know, we're about at that same, didn't really affect too much on the overall truing of the wheel. So, you know, this is a step we may end up doing a couple times. It looks like we're brought it up there quite a bit, but we're still not near the tension that we want to shoot for, at least on that spoke. So yeah, it looks still fairly consistent. That one was a little higher. So we got a little, you can see a little hop in there too. So usually at this point, I like to gradually bring up the tension by tightening or pulling up the low spots on the rim, mainly focusing on the radial truing while keeping the rim centered between the calipers. And I'm not relying on anything other than feel really to measure tension at this point, and I'm just really truing the wheel as I normally would. Basically, if I'm working a group of spokes and one feels a little looser than the rest, I'll give it a little bit more attention. But at this point, visually, the wheel's starting to it's getting pretty round, pretty centered and dished there. So basically we're getting there, but our tension isn't quite there yet. As you can see, it's coming up there. It's going to be a little bit inconsistent, but we're definitely headed in the right direction. So at this point, generally this is a step that I'll repeat a few times, but I'll give these spokes another squeeze. Again, working in groups of 4, and you know, basically that's something I'm going to repeat that process until essentially it doesn't really affect the spoke tension dropping much anymore. Once the tension's getting higher, I'm going to start to rely more on the tensiometer to basically focus on the lower tension spokes, and those are the ones that I'm going to address. So in other words, say I'm working on pulling up a low spot in a group of, say, 6 spokes or so, I'm going to focus most of the attention. I may turn every nipple there, but I'm going to put most of the attention on the spokes with the lowest tension. And then, you know, just kind of another side note on this, on the spoke tension, we're basically going to be measuring the finished tension on the side of the wheel that has the most tension. So that would be the drive side on the rear wheel, the disc brake side on the front wheel, and those are going to have more tension than the opposing side. So those are the ones we're gonna focus on there. So, you know, you can see the wheels, it's getting rounder and rounder, tension's getting closer and closer, so it's kind of just a matter of minor picking away at it really at this point. Going over it again, you know, just picking away at it, and I'm getting up to 20 now, so it's just going in more smaller, finer increments, but you're basically doing the same thing. You know, sometimes you can just go through and give each spoke a small tension if you got the wheel pretty straight, but your tension is a little low. But really just picking away at it until you get it to where now I've got it to where the tension's pretty even. It's gonna, you know, when I check all the spokes here on the drive side, we're all pretty well within in that 23, 22 number. You don't want any either really grossly over or under. We're pretty consistent here, and normally if you keep them pretty consistent, just as you're working away at it, the wheel's going to end up being pretty pretty round and straight if you're starting out with new components and a nice quality rim that's nice and round. So yeah, really just from there, I'm gonna check the dish. I'll do this periodically just by flipping the wheel back and forth, and you know, I know it's good because my machine's, you can tell just by flipping it over if it's a gross difference, then your machine's out of whack or the wheel's out of whack. I'm kind of doing the final stressing here of the wheel by just, you know, pushing down on it, let the spokes unwind as you unweight them, and then I'll give it a final little check, touch it up really. Normally it's pretty light at this point. You might have lost a little tension, but I'll generally bring the wheel nice and round and simultaneously keeping my tension as even as possible there. And you know, really that's it. It's just, you know, the last bit of, you know, it's really just how accurate you want the, you know, the wheel. I would, you know, in my mind, usually 1/2 millimeter, 1/4 millimeter radial and laterally is pretty good with equal tension. You know, that's what it looks like as far as from that perspective. You know, one thing to keep in mind, once you put the tire on and get that all set up and get it inflated, the tension's going to go down a little more. But I'll usually, once I get the tire on and inflate it and check it, I'll maybe touch up the lateral just a little bit. Typically, I won't really use the little tension gauge at this point. But yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.